take a 9-volt battery to that nose piercing of yours. Wakey, wakey.
That is funny. I read something about, or I don't know where I saw it, or read it, or saw it, or someone said it. I don't know.
If you read it,
Where?
It was on Saw It. And if you saw it, it was on Reddit.
I actually think it might have been on Quora.
Yeah. Quora. Quora
Anyway.
sends me constant emails about narcissists because I guess I looked up a narcissist thing once.
Yeah.
And now it's like, that's his interest.
Yep, that's what he wants to talk about.
Constantly get narcissist updates from Quora.
Quora. Anyway, so I saw this thing about like, what do guys really think of septum piercings in women? And I was reading, I don't know who was writing it, but I assume it might be a woman, because they were saying that it's a shitty point of view to come from, because what they're saying is that you are less attractive to me now.
Yes, of course. This is news to you that men go about their daily lives judging women on...
No, I guess it's not news to me, but I guess I just kept it sort of superficial and thought it was just, you know, someone's taste, or maybe a different sort of generation that someone might come from, and where, you know, like, are you still there?
I'm still here. Where would I go? Would I just ditch you?
Oh, your screen's frozen and you sound like a robot. So anyway, I was thinking it was just, you know, maybe something generational where, you know, people just don't understand it. Doesn't look right to them, you know, like maybe people that get tattoos, you know, they think of them as troublemakers because they come from a time when maybe that was the only people that had tattoos, you know?
Yeah, people went to jail and sailors, the two biggest troublemakers on the face of the planet.
So I don't know, but yeah, I guess I just didn't put it together that it would be something sort of misogynistic. And there were some like lesbians on there that were like, good. I can like decrease the dudes that try and hit on me now. I don't have to worry about them.
So this was on Quora, so you were just reading.
Quora.
You're not really interacting with it. Someone posed the question, yeah.
Yeah, the original thing I looked up was a month after piercing, like healing process, you know?
Do boys still find me attractive?
Yeah, I wasn't looking.
Are you sure about that?
Of course not. I was not looking up, do guys like me? I don't know. I was just worried that I touch it too much, or I'm not as clean with it as I should be, or, you know, so I just wanted to see where other people's sort of process, how theirs went, you know, a month after. So
I guess if there's any fairness to be given, which I don't want to give fairness to dudes, especially dudes who feel the need to jump on a thread, even if asked directly, what do you think of women with nose piercings? Like if I come across that, I'm not going to say, oh, good, finally an opportunity for me to express myself. I hate them. But someone did ask the question directly, right?
yeah.
So I guess it does open the door for dirtbags to express their opinion. Girls exist to be pretty to me. Mm-hmm. You are not pretty anymore to me. Therefore, you hold no value.
Yeah. Fuck that.
I mean, it is a bigger thing, like you said, with tattoos. It wasn't just girls. There was also judgment passed on guys, though guys surely got more of a pass. But there was that old style of thinking, as you said, with any tattoos where it's like, oh, I can't believe it. But especially, there was a lot of tack-ons. I can't believe that people are doing it, especially women.
Yeah.
I now know that response you just gave me 1 second ago, the little giggle and the yeah, was disingenuous. Because now we're picking up. I had to restart my modem because the feed was freezing and you couldn't hear anything that I was saying. So I just went on that little rant about tattoos and the way, whatever.
Repeating the thing that I had said earlier?
Yeah, I was reinforcing it.
Oh!
I was reinforcing it.
Mansplaining it?
Oh, maybe if you had heard what I said, and I understand.
Well, you played it and I heard it.
I understand, but you didn't hear the whole thing. I said, as you said earlier. So I even commented.
All you have to do to not mansplain is just to say, as you said
earlier. There was
no
mansplain. It wasn't explaining anything to you. It was drawing a connection, bringing it full circle. My God. Unbelievable.
Didn't I already do that?
No, you didn't bring it full circle. You introduced an idea, and then we went round and came back to the same idea. And that's how we could have gotten out of it and moved on. But you've decided to call it mansplaining to the person who offers the least amount of mansplaining on the face of the planet.
Okay.
Yeah, you think that's incorrect?
I don't know if it's incorrect or correct.
Yeah, share your thoughts.
There have been times on the show where we've talked about this, where I think the direction it's going is good, and you start what I think is overanalyzing, and so then you steer it somewhere else that I'm not trying to go, and so like you take it over instead of just letting it go wherever.
Yeah, it's called
goes.
neurosis. That's not mansplaining.
Okay.
That's me spiraling into a pit of overthinking.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I don't deny that happens, but there's no mansplaining. I don't ever think, oh, I know better than all women. I think I know better than you often, but not because you're a woman. So therefore it doesn't fall into
Why do you think you know better than me?
into the mansplaining category. I mean, I'm just smarter.
Smarter. Oh man.
No, I shouldn't.
no.
I just said that to stir you
I
up,
know.
to rile
Yeah.
you,
I know.
even if I secretly. But I mean, by default,
We all think we're smarter than other people. That's fine. I understand that.
I know I'm smart.
And I do think that in many ways you are smarter than me, but I think in many ways I might be smarter than you.
Well, maybe many ways I'm smarter than you. In a couple ways, you're smarter than me.
Fuck off.
How about that? I think that's the way that this goes.
Yeah. All right.
I also do know that I'm smarter than most people, but I also realize I'm an idiot. And that even makes me smarter because I have the ability to realize how stupid.
Instead of
And
just
pointless.
someone just blindly saying that they're so smart and they're smarter than everyone
Yeah.
and have zero flaws.
And realize I'm filled with flaws and I'm insignificant. And therefore, your inability to even recognize the simplest of facts makes you very, very dumb and puts me up on this pedestal
Right.
where I'm much, much smarter.
I do sort of I've called myself an elitist before because I do think that there are some things that are considered fuck. Now I'm trying to be smart and I've lost the word for it. What is it like humor or beauty? Like it depends on who you are and like it's subjective.
Yes.
Cut that out.
Nope. Nope.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that I have said before that things that are typically viewed as subjective, I feel like no, I have the authority on that. Like what I think is funny. If you don't think that's funny, you're wrong. You're just wrong. You don't get it.
That
You're
goes
not as yeah.
that goes right back to what we were talking about though with the nose piercing and the guys giving their opinions. That's subjective, and they think that their opinion is the right one. That's the
right,
only
as
one
a
that
man
matters.
judging a woman's
Well,
look.
sure, then that does exist, and we've already established that exists. That many men view women that way. But in general, just as a person who's giving their opinion on a subjective matter, they feel as though that they are correct. That's why they feel
Right.
the need to even post in the first place. I'm the authority. Here it is. Ugly. Where's my 9-volt battery?
God. If one more person sends that stupid picture to me.
I'm gonna wake you up with a shock.
I'm going to do this. My kid gets a piercing. Welcome to One Topic, where we stick to one topic. My name is Autumn Fisher.
My name is Greg Russ, and it is my week to choose the topic. And it upon first glance, it would feel as though this was a topic I chose. But Autumn jumped in and chose the topic. Even though
I
it
did.
relates to my life more than her life. Rats. Rats, not just rats specifically, rats in New York City.
Yeah.
Is there a reason?
Why did I think of this? Why did I think this was a good idea? Oh, because I saw a TikTok of Bob the Drag Queen, who's a legendary New York queen. And he was saying that he's worked in many restaurants in Manhattan. And he said, like, if you don't think that there are rats in every restaurant in Manhattan, you're wrong. He said when you go in the morning, they're not, so rats avoid the noise that humans are making, so you don't see them by the time you get there. But in the mornings when people are getting there to set up for the day, that's when they've been out and they scurry around and they're running away. And sometimes they've like died in the walls and you have to sort of cover that up. You're just saying like every Manhattan restaurant's full of rats.
Yeah. I think about this, rats and mice. And even with the health grading scale that they put in place, you can have an A and there still can be a presence, like evidence of rats. You find a hair, you find a piece of poop, and that can still be okay because it's known that it's just impossible to keep them out fully, which is kind of disgusting. I think about this.
It's their city. It's a underground population. Are there more rats in New York City than humans?
No. I mean, obviously,
I wouldn't be surprised, though, if that was true.
It's impossible to know the exact number, obviously, but yeah, there was an urban legend going around that the rat population was more than the population of people. Mm-hmm. And then that at some point that became 5 times the number of people. That's the biggest number I've ever heard. That the rat population is 5 times the number of people in New York, which the number of people in New York is 3-4 million. So that would put rats at what? What's 8.4 times 5?
Well, I just looked it up, and they estimate it's like 2 million rats.
Yeah, it's 2 million. That's what I was getting at. So
okay,
on this high figure, 42 million rats, which, because they're smaller and they don't need too much space. And I was reading about this. Rats actually don't, for the most part, they don't move more than 600 feet away from where they were born. They just kind of stay in the same area as long as there's a food source and a water source. And they tend to live only about 100 feet at most away from their food source. So they don't really travel too much unless they have to. So if they have everything they need.
So you're looking at like sometimes if you see a rat in your neighborhood, it's been there. Its grandparents were there. Its great-grandparents were there.
I mean, probably its great-great-great-grandparents still live there with it, since these things are able to reproduce a few months into their lives. Like immediately, they're shooting out babies, tens of babies. I think the average lifespan of a New York City rat is only 1 year.
Right.
So it's not like they live that long. And obviously saying your great-great-great-grandparents are around, it was a joke. I was exaggerating a bit, but
that might not be exaggerating because they begin mating at 2 to 3 months old.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of them around in their family structure. I don't know if it goes that far back, but yeah, they start shooting out these babies immediately, and they just keep doing it, and that's I guess good for their survival as a species, not as a whole, because that can become a problem. So, but going back, you said it was 2-point-something million rats estimated in the city, which puts it at about a third of the population of people. So it's not awful. It's less than I would think because you do see them almost everywhere. Mm-hmm. I've had them run into my ankle before. I kicked one before by accident, just walking. If you're walking past a pile of garbage waiting to be picked up by the sanitation department, watch out, because those fuckers come scurrying out of there, and they'll just run right into you. And they can jump, apparently 4 feet. I don't know if the 4 feet was the distance that they could jump or the height.
The height.
Yeah, so they can jump 4 feet.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was the height.
They can jump a horizontal distance of 4 feet, and vertically 3 feet. So just standing there, they can jump.
Same thing.
They can jump 3 feet onto you.
And isn't it that they can fit it through the size of like a nickel or something? Like if they can fit their noses through or something?
A 1-inch hole.
Maybe I'm thinking of cats. I don't remember.
No. It's right. They can fit through a 1-inch hole. Okay. Let me specify. We're talking about the brown rat here, because that's the rat population that is overrun in New York. I think there was a different type of rat. So it's the brown rat, which is the Norway rat. And the average body weight is 12 ounces. It doesn't mean anything to us in males. and then they can squeeze through holes or gaps 1 inch wide. And then there was another rat.
Fancy rat, which are like the pets.
Well, those are the hooded rats.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the nice ones.
Those are like dogs.
The domesticated rat that people keep as pets.
Yeah, they do tricks.
No, there was the black rat, the ship rat, or the roof rat, also known as.
Oh, they were always the jerk rats in like, in cartoons in Disney.
Well, it was a misrepresentation because in real life, the black rat was decimated by the brown rat because the brown rat was more aggressive, so it would kill them and outcompete them. They bullied the black rats into
They did.
obsolescence.
Maybe they were secret jerks. Maybe there was like an uprising against them.
It is pretty disgusting. So these rats, I know that he gave the weight, and it doesn't really express how big they are. But, the rats that you see, people exaggerate. It's as big as a cat or a possum. They're not that big, but they're fucking big creatures.
Yeah.
Just scurrying about, and they're not cute like squirrels. And I can't stand people who are opposed to squirrels. They're just rats with fluffy tails. No, they're rodents, yes. But they're much cuter, and they have more personality, as far as I'm concerned. And it really,
I don't think you get an opportunity to see the rat's personality, because I bet you that they do have a personality.
oh, they're ugly. I don't. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't think they're ugly. Why do you think they're ugly? Because you can see their naked tail.
That is part of it. I do think that just the shape of their bodies and their heads. The thing that you were talking about, they can squeeze through that small space. It's because I guess the bones in their skull are not fused, so they can actually collapse it a bit.
Oh, okay. So I think, so I was, even though I was correct, I was getting it confused with cats, because cats I don't think have collarbones, and that's why they can fit through these small, like if they can put their head through a hole, then they can fit their entire body through that.
Yeah, and so a rat can go through a hole that's actually bigger than its head. It can collapse its head a bit. Which...
You mean smaller than its head?
Oh, yeah, smaller than its head.
Yeah.
Is what I meant. Yes, thank you for that correction.
You're welcome.
I'm looking up the different skeletons. I think you can base a lot on an animal and its cuteness on its skeleton.
Interesting.
You ever look at an owl skeleton, for example?
Yes, they're so tiny.
Yes, they're much...
Why are they so little?
They're much smaller. Even if you looked up an owl without feathers, you can tell.
They're so cute.
They look like fucking aliens, though.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, birds...
Especially those big eye sockets and stuff.
Yeah, birds in general are weird.
Yeah.
But owls, it's not what you expect. Because they're menacing presence. They're fluffed out.
They have so many feathers, I think, that like bulks them up.
So look up a rat skeleton.
Yeah, I'm looking.
And then look at a squirrel skeleton.
Oh.
I like the squirrel skeleton even has the posture of the squirrel where it sits on its hind legs. I think that's... Obviously, rats will eat things with their hands. Most rodents. That's what made hamsters so cute, right? The lack of tail. The lack of tail.
They look like the way that you look cute with like a mug in the wintertime. You put both little hands over you.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
There was the lack of the lack of tail. I'm looking at these skeletons at the same time.
Okay, so it looks like the squirrels, there's not that big of a difference.
No, there's total difference. Look at that skull. Look at the shape of the skull. The awful, horrific skull of a rat.
It's longer.
Yeah.
It's a different... Really, it just seems like a squirrel hangs out on its back legs more than a rat would.
Yeah, even that posture of the rat and the way its back legs are all bent up into acute angles.
Not acute angles.
Anyway, this is... Yes, thank you. Thank you for taking us out of that. As a audio medium, I don't want to spend too much time looking at the pictures. I just think squirrels in general are much cuter, but who am I to say if people don't like them and they find them to be repulsive the same way? It's because squirrels...
Yeah, I don't understand how they find... Because I don't really think that rats are that repulsive. I know that they bring disease and mess and they're invading your space, and squirrels don't seem to be doing that as often.
I mean, ask
unless
a
they like get up in
homeowner.
your attic.
Yeah, ask a homeowner as an addict. I'm sure they can't
Yeah.
stand squirrels. Squirrels get in there and destroy the fuck out of your attic. But
But that doesn't happen to every single person. And it seems like in New York, especially we're talking about the New York rat, like there's no New Yorker that has never encountered a rat. And there's plenty of suburban people owning homes that have not had a squirrel in their attic.
yeah, the rat is still plagued by the plague. Get it?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Good.
that unfair or not, because many animals carry disease. Pigeons carry disease, but it's always highly publicized with a rat that it's carrying disease, the pathogens that can cause diarrhea and vomiting and fever, and there's bacteria, and there's salmonella and E. coli and other ones that I can't even begin to pronounce, and I don't want to try to pronounce because they're so horrific.
Diphtheria.
And the other, I'm sure that a squirrel, for example, can pass some of the similar things, but there's that stigma attached to a rat. And as you said, it's invasive a bit more here in New York, especially. You don't see squirrels except for in parks. They're not really hanging out outside parks. So then it changes your perception on it when you go to the park. Oh, look at this cute animal who lives solely in this park where I retreat to kind of relax for a bit. And it's running around.
Into nature.
Not walking on the sidewalk and having it appear in the middle of the night. That's another thing, the nocturnal activity.
Oh, yeah. And especially as humans who are not nocturnal and they see an animal that is nocturnal and it's going through the garbage and it's everywhere, right? And then the history of its diseases and everything, they really get a bad rap.
I mean, they deserve it because they're destructive. I mentioned.
Listen, we're destructive.
Of course. If there was an animal our size to scale, so we're the size of rats, and then there's another animal, they would look at us and they would think that we are some of the most disgusting, destructive creatures in existence.
Look at all the trash we produce.
Exactly. I do think of the comparison.
Let's bury it in the ground.
I still don't we should just burn it. I think we should burn it all, which there are incinerators. And I know there's many reasons that burning trash is not good. There's no good way. There's no good way to get rid of it. Launching it into space is too expensive. And you'd really have to get it out of the gravitational pull of the Earth. You don't want it stuck around the Earth. Launch it into the sun. That's fine.
How about produce less things that could become trash?
I mean, there's a movement towards that. Mm-hmm. You use reusable. But
recycling ain't it.
No, recycling's a joke for the most part.
Yeah. I don't recycle and I don't feel bad about it. I was going to say, and maybe I feel a little guilty, but I don't.
Do you even have a recycling program set up where you live?
Yes.
So do you have to pay for it?
No.
Okay.
I'm sure it's included somehow in my rent, already, but there's nothing extra that I pay for. And if I do have like weird boxes and stuff, I'll keep a couple and then throw them, like throw a cereal box in it, but on the daily, like if I don't have another vessel to put like a can in, I'm putting in the trash.
All right. Well, you're kind of a jerk then. If it's there and it's set up and it's relatively simple, even if it doesn't go anywhere, because I was reading about the percentage of the recyclables that actually get recycled, and it's pretty low.
Yeah.
20% of it, maybe 30.
You know where a lot of the food goes that grocery stores get rid of? It goes into like pig feed, but they don't even unwrap, the packages of bread. So bits of plastic are all getting mixed up with all of this food, and then the pigs consume it, and then who consumes the pigs? We do.
The cycle, the food cycle.
I know, and that's when they talk about like infants being born with plastic or something in their blood. I don't know if that's true, but there's something about like human, plastic intake and what it's doing to us.
Oh yeah, of course. Our wastefulness and our products that are harmful do come back. Yeah. They get us. Ultimately, they have the last laugh. The plastic factory. It's the death of us all.
Like I saw this guy cleaning out his granddad's like 1950s home or something, and he was showing a big like canister, a tin canister that held saltines. it said like saltines. And I thought, oh, interesting. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a
Why
tin
can't
canister.
we have stuff like that? Is it because it costs too much to make the canister?
Yeah, the cost of production. The moment new technology arises where a company can lower their production costs, they're gonna do it. And sometimes, if they're nice enough, they'll pass that savings on to the consumer. Quite often, I don't feel as though that's the case, though the people who make the argument for it say it makes it cheaper for you also. I don't know. I know that there are items made of plastic, like toys, for example, probably it cost less in the end. But if a company's already up and running and say they use glass bottles and they switch to plastic bottles, are we really seeing the savings in the end? Are they really deciding, we're going to charge you less now too? I am cynical.
I mean, how much is it if you can get a bottle of Mexican Coke for $1, and if you go to a vending machine with a plastic bottle, it's $1.
Where do you get it for $1?
Huh?
Where do you get this thing for $1? The Mexican Coke is always
grocery store.
I've never seen it for $1. I always see it for $2.25 or something.
Oh no, I've gotten it at Aldi for $1. I think I've even seen it at Giant for $1.
Are you sure it's the actual authentic, what we call Mexican Coke? And the difference is the glass bottle, but they use cane sugar instead of the...
Yeah, the cane sugar.
Have you checked to make sure it's the actual?
Yeah,
Well, that's a good price then. You're lucky.
I know.
Which also not a high price point. So then why isn't that the go-to? Look, I know that using glass, is also wasteful, and the process behind it. I don't know what it goes into making glass and if that's worse in the long run. But plastic is pretty bad when it comes to...
It does seem probably easier to recycle glass than it does plastic.
I agree.
And the people that, throw away something that contained food, and then they throw that into the recycling, and then once it gets to some plant, it doesn't make it through the process of recycling because it's been contaminated. You know what I mean? So there's all those weird rules about how things can be recycled. So
there's all the numbers attached to plastics.
Oh my God, those stupid.
There's 2, 3, 4, 5.
Nobody knows what those fucking mean. Why would they make something like that?
We don't know what they mean, but if you're to recycle them, that's why, because they can't be recycled. The thing with glass.
We don't have a system like Japan where it's like this type of recycling goes here, this type goes here, this type goes here. It's plastic, it's tin, it's glass, it's cardboard, it's paper. We just throw it all in that blue bin and say, good luck. And then
there's supposed to be
nobody knows what those numbers mean.
There's supposed to be an organization later on down the line, but this is why it doesn't happen. This is why it falls apart. But anyway, the show's not about recycling.
I guess it is.
Well, talking about waste ties in to rats in the sense that that's the reason they exist here in New York. Like the way the city is set up. New York's been voted worst rat city, which I know they're in many cities, but the wastefulness is... I'm not saying it's more here, but by default, because there's more people, there's more. And they're not necessarily more wasteful than other places, maybe even less wasteful in ways because, whatever. That's not, I don't want to get into that and talk about why Houston is more wasteful because you drive. That's stupid. That's not the point of this. It's
a dense population of people here in New York. So it would make sense that the population of rat that would consume the waste of the dense population of humans would be more dense.
Yeah, and the way the trash is put out here on the sidewalks, easy access. People shit on New York for that, but if you do think about it, the trash, there's nowhere else for it to go other than the sidewalk because there's not alleys in New York. It's rare to have alleys. Chicago has many alleys. For some reason, I think people who aren't familiar with New York think it's filled with alleys, but it's not. It's like every block is just dense with buildings, and there's not space in between the buildings for the most part. So it's put on the sidewalk. It's picked up pretty quickly, several times a week. It's an efficient service. It's just there's that moment for those few hours where it's sitting out and it's piled fucking sky high if it's in a place like Midtown during non-COVID days when there's just so much trash for millions of people. And it's easy access at that point for the rats to come out, and it's a feast. And the competition isn't so fierce because there's so much food to go around. This is what's interesting when COVID hit and everyone stopped coming into the city for work. places where the rat populations were denser and higher, the rats actually started eating each other. They started killing each other because there were too many of them.
Did people just hear them fighting?
I think there's people who document it. They go out and look, and since they don't tend to move too far from where they were born, and they live, 100 feet from their food source, when the food source is gone or diminished, they're going to start attacking each other, or they all start to move and look for a new food source. But then that just creates even more competition. It gets to the point where there's such desperation that they started slaughtering each other and then eating each other, which is what they did to the black rat. It's what they do to mice if things are bad enough. I was reading that mice and rats, they don't coexist in the sense that they mingle or hang out with each other, but they can cross each other's paths. And for the most part, a rat will leave a mouse alone unless it's hungry. And then,
unless there's a competition for a food source.
Yeah, which is all this fucking boils down to. Animals are just machines, and like, I need to fuel myself. I need to procreate.
I mean, think about the fact that we're so disgusted by mice. It really is, doesn't it just, to me, it reminds me of my own humanity, or not my own humanity, but my own animal, the fact that I am also an animal. Because if you think about humans and rats, there's a ton of research done on rats because their bodies respond to things similarly as the human body does. And then just their behavior. They have societies. There's a balance typically within that society. And then when things go off just a little bit, they start fucking eating each other. And like when COVID happened, like, why the fuck did everyone go get toilet paper? But we did. And it just seems like that would be something that we would look at another species and be like, what are they doing? Why are they doing that?
Yes, there are certainly similarities. The scramble for toilet paper, as you said. I remember there were some reports that was it because people thought it was going to cause diarrhea, and then there's going to be no one wanted to go out also, so they just wanted to stockpile the things that they needed to stay inside. It's the same phenomenon as bread and milk when it snows.
Yeah, I also don't understand that. Who could people make fun of people who drink milk now? So why are we still saying like get your bread and milk before the storm comes?
I guess there's an idea that there's nutrients provided in milk if you were locked inside for a very long time in a snowstorm in a place where it doesn't snow that often. More than likely, in a few days, even if things got really fucking bad, you're going to be back out and about. Not everything is going to break down. Now, I think with COVID, there was such uncertainty tied to it. We didn't know how bad it was going to get, if supply chains would fall apart. Even going outside and exposing yourself. It's strange that one of the focuses was on toilet paper, but it does go to show, as you were saying, that if this was something more serious, a disease that had a higher death rate, and we knew for sure that everything was going to start falling apart because there's no way to operate because 60% of the people who were exposed were dying. Can you imagine? Yeah, cannibalism. No. We want to be eating each other right away, but it's not a world that I want to live in. And it's pretty fucking fragile. It
is. I mean, you would think that there would be like a decorum, like an understanding of kind of now I'm sort of echoing the beginning of COVID, which was like, we're in this together. We're all in this together, but
because it only takes one person.
I think in a very, very small scale, it would be that. But then, 5 doors down, your neighbor would like eat you if they had to. Maybe not your next door neighbor, but
yeah, it takes one person. The reason that doesn't work is it takes one person to fuck it all up. Everyone else wants to, okay, we're in this together. Let's look out for each other. And then one guy comes in with a fucking shotgun. It's like, fuck you. And then it's done. That guy takes everything.
And then we have to protect ourselves. And then we have to make a choice between my family or yours. And I'm going to choose mine.
At some point, at first, I think it devolves into that, where it's just my family, fuck your family. And then at some point when things settle down and you're starting to rebuild, you do start to fill the gaps and have larger groups. But there's still the enemies out there. I mean, you go right back to tribalism in its purest
Animals.
sense.
That's all we are. We walk around pretending that we're not animals, and we are.
I mean, I'm well aware of that. That's why I don't like being alive. Because
Jesus.
Well, because there's this illusion that humans walk around with that we're better, we're different. No, you're not any different. We were able to push the envelope of being different than removing ourselves from the lowly.
There's a part of
rat.
our brain that's crazy smarter than, well, on a scale, on a subjective scale of smart. I think in a lot of ways, our intelligence, as far as abstract thought and all of that, has made us less smart when it comes to being connected to the earth, and maybe survival, things like that. That sort of like instinctual, like we've associated these reactions, like anxiety. We've merged that into mental sort of sometimes disorder when it was originally made so that we would have anxiety around that bush that like killed my uncle because he ate the berries. You know what I'm saying? So like, and our brains are too smart. So we've like moved away from that. So in some ways, maybe the rats are smarter than us, depending on
No, they're idiots.
what society, what kind of world you're living in. And for them, they're pretty smart. And for the world that we're in right now, we're pretty smart. But if shit goes just a little sideways, we're real stupid.
I follow your logic until you get to the point where maybe the rats are smarter than us. And it's like, no, they're
smarter in their world. Like we couldn't survive in their world.
Yeah, but that's all based on instinct and survival. Sure.
And that's what I'm saying. Our intelligence has pulled us away from connecting to our instincts.
Well, that's our survival mechanism. That's a reason. Like, obviously, being smarter and being able to, create civilizations and domesticate animals and set up all these systems in the first place is what allowed us to become dominant creatures. I know what you're saying, that if it boiled down to us having to compete on the same primal level, that it would fall apart. But it can be argued that the primal level does include a bigger brain. It's like, okay, well, that's a thing that evolved. When I'm saying, though, that there's an illusion, we've built this and we've pushed the limits and we've tried to separate ourselves from animals and we have put these systems in place. But the real test isn't until those things break down. And if it holds, then you can say that you've separated yourself a bit from the animals because you're making choices that go against your survival or making choices that present survival in a less direct manner. Like when things break down, survival instinct kicks in and then you're just going to your basics, like kill, steal, punch. At that point, it's like, okay, you're
fight, eat.
Yeah, you're at the same level as a lowly beast. But if it breaks down and you make the decision to try to hold it together with other people, knowing that in the long run and preserving what's been built may ensure your survival better than the short term, just ripping everything to shreds, that to me is a real test. And it's a test I don't think we would ever fucking pass.
This makes me think of the Who's down in Whoville from the Grinch.
Those naive,
you know what I mean?
Those naive fucking creatures living a life like it's wonderful and grand constantly.
Well, Jesus, I'm trying to make a different point.
Constantly whistling and singing without a care in the world.
They lost everything. He fucking didn't just take their presents. He took like everything hanging on their walls and stuff, and they just woke up and like
he didn't take
got
their
together
spirit
and held hands and sang their song. And but in reality, right, that would be all of us accusing each other of stealing things.
Yeah, there are more advanced species.
I guess so.
The Who's than humans.
Are they part of Horton? Are they the part of that universe and Horton hears a Who?
I don't know. I'm not well versed in the Dr. Seuss universe. I do know that. I mean,
they're Who's.
I do know that Snozberries.
So the Grinch also exists in that little like floof that Horton found?
I don't know enough about the Horton story.
Oh, okay. Horton found like a plant with a floof, and inside of the floof was a whole society.
Did he eat it?
No, but everybody was making fun of him or like didn't believe him, and he was trying to convince them that it was real. And it was like an example of, I don't know.
Well, then
I forget what.
It sounds
society.
like yes. It sounds like yes, that they exist in the same society. I was going to say, I don't know. know the Roald Dahl. Jesus.
Wow, doll.
Yeah, I know his universe where the snozberries are actually testicles, and then that's the in joke. I don't know if they knew it at the time in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but he referenced snozberries elsewhere as being balls. And so when they're licking the wallpaper and saying the snozberries taste like snozberries, they're saying the balls taste like balls.
Nice.
That's
Snoresberry. Who ever heard of a snoresberry?
Vinicius Canid. I don't know why I've always found that to be amusing.
I just had the kids watch Willy Wonka, and they loved it.
Oh, yeah?
Keeps wanting to watch it. Well, Pete especially, he's really into fat. He loves, like, when someone on a show gets a big belly, you know, like a cartoon kid or person gets, like, a big belly for some reason, or they all get fat. He likes the fat video from Weird Al. I showed him that because he loves fat. So he loved when the girl turned into a blueberry. And he loves, Augustus Gloop.
Because he's fat.
Because he's fat. He loves fat.
A fetish
He plays
is formed.
with my stomach.
It's like the Big Bang of fetish.
Yeah. He uses my stomach and he makes things on it and then he puts it in the oven, which is really just pulling my shirt back down over my stomach.
Bakes them with the body heat. Well, I'm glad that they liked it because if they didn't, I feel as though you would really reassess your love for your children. Is that a thing? Now we're way off topic, but is that a thing with having kids? You introduce them to something you're excited about and they don't like it, and you're like, oh fuck, who are you?
I think that there's a if it was just one thing that I like really narrowed in on and that was my thing and they didn't like it, I think there would be more stakes, right? Because it was like the one thing. But I have many things that I love, you know, and Willy Wonka was one of them and they loved it. So I was glad. If they didn't like it, then I would move on to, and I'll get us back on topic, Secret of NIMH and hope that they like that instead. Which I tried to get them to watch recently, and Pete, I showed him the trailer because he didn't understand what I was. It's really hard. It's a hard concept to explain to kids about, like, what is this movie about? Okay, well, so there are these rats, and then the rat married a mouse, and then he got killed by and then they came from the lab. Okay, but so I showed him the trailer, and also this movie was from 1982, so it was a different time for children and it's different now, right? Like a trailer for something now would not be as sort of scary as this trailer was, and the movie is kind of scary. So Pete was
as it should be,
so we didn't watch it.
Like The Witches, they would never make that.
The Witches.
They would never make that where they turn the kids into mice and try to stomp on them.
Well, they did. They made it with an actress.
Yeah, they redid it. I don't know if they're. What I meant is like taking a story that was somewhat scary and, I don't know, violent towards children. Because that's ultimately what it is.
Do you mean like keeping it that intensely scary?
I just don't know if they would,
instead of like lightening it up a bit?
Well, it's like even before you get to the movie phase, writing a book like that. Is anyone publishing that anymore? Probably not. I don't think you're going to get things like that.
No, it's too harsh. It's like those German stories are way scary.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I could remember the name of it.
Struwelpeter.
Yeah, where he's got long hair and toenails and fingernails and
it's for kids who suck their thumb. He's going to chop their thumbs off.
I say I love that kind of stuff.
I do too.
And
so
not,
listen, so
and not just as an adult though. Hold on, not just as an adult who's like loves watching children be scared. That's not what it is. As a kid, I like that stuff. There was something about it that really drew me in, and it was, even if it was scary.
And it's not like you love horror.
No, I don't even like horror now.
Yeah,
there were tales with morals and consequences. I think that's the big thing. Like, hey, there's consequences for choices in life. Don't be an idiot.
I think what I enjoy about stuff like that, like showing the kids that now, is showing them a different side of what's presented to them. Because even though there's probably way more content to consume as a child now, it's it all stays within a really safe spectrum, right? And so showing them things that, are outside of that spectrum, but still safe, but just not as safe, I think is fun. So like, yeah, Willy Wonka, I want to show them Secret of Nim. I think that I've had Ellie watch it before, but I want them to both watch it. I think she's forgotten it. And I read to them almost every night Where the Sidewalk Ends. And some of that is like,
inside everyone's nose, there lives a sharp-toothed snail. If you stick your finger up, you may bite off your nail. That's my favorite. I like the illustration.
Oh, I think I'm wrong. I meant a
Light in the attic. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh, you got it wrong.
But also good. Also really good.
It is, but you got it wrong.
I did. I'm sorry. But yeah, then there's really great. I mean, some of them are like dark and some of them are silly. One of them is sort of insightful where the guy is looking in the puddle and he sees his upside down self and he wonders if the person on the other side is right side up and he's actually upside down.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool. I think that one's like 4 lines long, but it's like it's something to make you think.
Yeah.
And it's just not.
It introduces a deeper concept. It's like, what? And then the kid can start thinking about it and develop their own neurosis. I watched when I was just in Maine. I got stoned every night before I went to bed, not as leisure, but as like a punishment. And it's like, it's time to push myself into places I don't want to go, and self-realization and assessing things for what they are without sugarcoating it. And then I ended up putting on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and just the opening credits scared the fuck out of me. I was like, man, I was thinking about the state of the world at the time and how Germany was in disarray and Munich lured them in with production with cheap rates, and how they all traveled there and were in this weird land, and how Gene Wilder is now dead, and how the kids have grown up and they're getting old themselves. I fell asleep before the credits ended. The opening credits. I was like,
wow, all the chocolate stuff.
Yeah, and like the music was pulling me back to my childhood, and I was thinking about how I was aging, and
yeah,
and I was like, I gotta get out of here, and I went to sleep.
Oh man.
Going back to rats, having a 1-year lifespan maybe isn't such a bad thing. You don't even have time to begin to think about it. It's over in a snap.
I don't think they ever begin to think about anything like that.
I mean, somewhere inside they know that they need.
Isn't that interesting? That's almost like thinking about people who are blind and how they don't see blackness; they just see nothing. There is no see, And if you think about it, an intelligent creature like a rat, relatively intelligent, I guess, like there is no consciousness still.
I mean, to what extent? So I had a rat problem. There's a consciousness, obviously, but they're not deep thinking, but
they're not thinking about themselves. If they saw themselves in the mirror, they would think it were another rat.
Yeah, they have no sense of self.
Right.
It's also interesting to me that I brought it up. I don't know if it made it into our pre-show that I had the rat. Not this pre-show, but maybe a previous episode that I had a couple dead rats in my engine.
Yeah.
Greatest city in the world, New York, where rats go into your parked car and build a nest. And one of these rats moved in probably in September, and there was a period of time with a bunch of holidays where I didn't have to move the car, and I left it there for a few weeks. And the next time I drove it, there was a smell, and the next few times there was a smell, and then the smell went away. I never looked in the engine. I was actually kind of scared too. I figured something was dead in there, and I didn't want to look. And I was like, maybe it'll just go away. It was typical Greg avoidance.
Avoid, yeah.
And then the smell went away. I was like, great. And then over Christmas, drove down to Atlanta, and then the smell came back. I was like, oh no, what is this? Opened the hood, a full nest on top of the engine block with leaves and plastic bags. The leaves were burnt to a crisp. I'm surprised this didn't start a fire, which recently in New York, there was a guy's car who caught fire, and that was the exact reason. The fire started in the engine and spread because a rat had built a nest, and he was driving, and the dry leaves started to flame. So anyway, I saw this, and then I looked down. We find the skeleton, some fur, the tail still kind of there, burnt to a crisp of a rat. I was like, oh, okay, thinking that was it. And the smell persisted, and looking farther into the engine, down in the skid plate, I saw like a pile of fur. I was like, oh no, there's another one. So there were two rats. There was the one that died in September that had sat there for so long that it decomposed pretty quickly. I think for the amount of time, and it also cooked anytime that I started the engine because it would get warm in there. And pulling that one out, it's like its tail was brittle and broken to pieces. And but this other rat had moved in at the skid plate. That rat was still intact. Like it was a whole fucking thing. It wasn't cut up by the engine or anything, but it had died somehow and fallen to the skid plate and hadn't been there that long. But we're talking about their consciousness. It's like if I moved into a place and there was another dead person in there, I don't know if I'd stay. I don't think I would stay, but they don't think about that, obviously. And I'm not presenting this like it's like, whoa, blow your mind. But it is interesting that, or I guess maybe even if they were capable of understanding on the most basic of levels that, oh, there's another creature in here dead like me. It just doesn't matter in their world. And that's being generous. Obviously, I don't think there's any thought that's put into it.
I mean, I wonder if people who have been in a war situation where they were hiding somewhere and there were dead people there, that they would still hide there.
Yeah, that's survival. That's survival because there's a impending doom around the corner.
Right. So I think rats or whatever might have that. They're just it's just survival.
Yeah, but this is, yes, it
That's
is just.
why they don't have that other thought.
Yeah. This is more akin to peacetime, though, and then moving into a house. Maybe it's always wartime with rats. I guess it is. Because the competition is fierce. The competition in New York City is fierce, even for the rats.
But they're not thinking about it. That's the thing. It's just surviving. They don't have the other folds in their brain to communicate anything else except survival.
They do tend to nest with a few other rats. They create small communities, which I wonder how that forms. Because we're talking about this, these thoughts aren't being had consciously, but somewhere inside, I don't know how the rats are chosen or selected or how they communicate to each other that they're going to be the family.
Yeah.
But there's several rats in a nest. So it is interesting. How does that form? Or they just do it and they're okay. And if they're not okay with one, they don't understand why, but they attack that one. It's got to be some kind of trigger, whether it's a scent, and there's obviously no thought when it's happening, probably. It's just like, okay.
Just a quick Google talks about female rats being more attracted to the urine of adult males than the urine of prepubescent males.
Yeah.
So, some of it probably has to do with, again, survival, right? Like I need to I'm biologically driven to procreate. So I need to choose a mate that A, is not prepubescent and that I enjoy the smell of for some reason.
It's all ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because it's all we're doing. It's the same thing we're doing. We've just prettied it up and made it flowery. It's all survival.
Mm-hmm. The thing is that we do have the brain space and capacity and the thought process to be able to think about more than just survival. But like I said,
that's because we have the luxury. We have the luxury of it. When it boils down to it, as we've established, all that goes out the door. And then the next thing you know, you're running around living in someone's engine block or, overtaking a Dunkin' Donuts. Did you ever see that video here in New York? There was
No.
Rats overtook a Dunkin' Donuts, also a Taco Bell at some point. And,
really?
Yeah, just like the inside, the store was closed, but the Dunkin' Donuts, the rats are running over the donuts. Like the donuts are locked up for the night, which I thought they threw them away. That's a whole other thing. The amount of food waste that these businesses have. Grocery stores throw so much food away. Have you ever watched these videos? The amount of food that gets thrown away.
I have seen the like I said, that pig thing. So there's a lot of food that goes to waste.
It is insane how much food is thrown away, but that's a different thing. And I guess that's where the rats usually get their food. But for whatever reason, they weren't getting what they needed, so they went into the Dunkin' Donuts and were running all over the donuts, eating them, the bagels. And then there was an older video of a Taco Bell where just the inside was overrun. That was I think right when I moved to New York, the Taco Bell one. So, some people had cameras on their phones or had a way to record,
right,
but most people didn't. So who knows the other instances? I know I read once there was a report in like the 1800s, 1860 or something, of rats killing a baby, eating its face.
What?
They ate part of its face and part of its foot. I think that's relatively rare, and obviously,
How does that happen?
well, if you're
Without someone coming in and saying, "Hey, get off my baby."
it's a good question. I don't know the circumstances
I think
around
this sounds like a story of neglect, and then it turned into like blame the rats.
Well,
Because it's the second my kid is screaming bloody murder because their face is getting eaten by a rat, I'm going to go in there and rescue them.
true. Where were the parents? Why didn't they go in? Why was nothing done? And
This
it
is
was
bullshit. This is some weird tale of somebody who needed to kill a bunch of rats in New York, so they came up with this story. The rats are going to eat your babies.
Well, there have been anti-rat campaigns in the city where it's like rat-proof your house and kill all the
That's
rats
fine.
that you can, because they will overrun. Did you ever see the Hoarders where the guy had rats? They were domesticated rats that had reproduced. So they
I
were.
might have seen that. I'm not sure.
I mean, once there's an infestation, I know there was an infestation at a firehouse in Queens where they just had to condemn the building. They could not get rid of the rats. There were so many. They're just like, it's done. Get out. We're knocking this thing down. And there was that one episode of Hoarders where the guy had all these rats, and that's all he had. Like, they were family to him. And they weren't even killing them. They were just trying to catch them, to box them up, and who knows what they were going to do at that point, really, with them.
Yeah, they put them all in a trash bag.
It's just impossible.
Just threw it in a dumpster.
Yeah, it's impossible to get rid of them all. They were living in the walls. They were ripping open the walls, and the level of mazes they had created was pretty insane, which I guess they do underground also. I don't know why they live in the... Well, I guess I know why they live in the subway stations, because there's trash there also. But you see them quite often in the subway stations.
It seems like there's less food in a subway station as opposed to... Well, I guess they do both, right? It's probably safer down there because the humans are very contained.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Whereas,
trash.
like, on the streets, there's more food, but you're more likely to run into a human.
There's trash cans. Like, people say subway rats. I bet you don't see rats really on most of the tracks, only in the stations. And they're running around on the tracks. They come up on the platform. Sometimes they get in the train. That's rare. They don't want to be in the train.
No, they don't want to go very far from their home.
I mean, a rat who got into a subway train, if they got off that subway train without being caught and killed, I wonder, they probably died anyway, because being removed that much from their home, I don't know if they know how to survive.
I wonder how a stranger rat would do. Unless there was a lady that liked the smell of his urine.
Yeah, that downtown rat. How dare he come uptown?
Ooh, he came from downtown.
There was a video also of like a homeless guy sleeping on the train and a rat running around on his face. There was another viral video. Which, this leads us to a whole other thing. Why record it? Why not just go knock the rat off the person? Because it's more important that you get the video so you can post it. I know I know we talk about this too often. I don't want to get back into it, but this is one of my arguments against it. It has bred a society and a culture of, don't help that person. Just make sure to capture their moment of humiliation or despair, and then you could post it and get a lot of likes.
Well, that's two pronged. I think your point, and then also that homeless people aren't viewed as humans.
Yeah, if it weren't a homeless, you're exactly right. But if it weren't a homeless person, just a regular person sleeping, I still think they would have filmed. But there is that added element to it because it was a homeless person.
Well, especially in the city where you have to, it's like such a part of your daily life that you really do have to, like, you can't think about them that much, right? Or else it's too sad. It's too painful.
You can't do anything.
To think about it. Huh?
Yeah, you can't do anything to help.
No.
Even if you can help one person, it's like you can't help overall.
And even that one person, it's like 1 in 100 that you're actually going to do any good for them.
Well, if you help them, it's also temporary. It's fleeting. You can
That's
help
what
them.
I mean.
Yeah.
It's not like this is the leg up that they needed. You took them somewhere.
And then there was, I'm going back to the viral video. So there was that pizza rat several years ago, which went around. Like, so when Pizza Rat happened, you remember Pizza Rat, right?
Yeah.
It was just a rat,
Yeah, the rat in the subway that's dragging the slice of pizza.
a whole slice of pizza down, which is not out of the ordinary. Like, I guess most of the time, whole slices of pizza aren't thrown out. And if they are,
True.
a rat isn't going to drag the whole thing. So that part. But when that came up, I thought, so what? There's shit like this happening all the time. But for some reason, it caught the collective imagination of the world with the Pizza Rat. Look, it's Pizza Rat. And then it spawned that whole thing of different types of rats. You know, suddenly you had Cupcake Rat, and people were trying to stage things. And
do you know that clip from 90 Day Fiance where Big Ed is
Yes.
in Rose's parents' house or her house, you know? And he's like taking the shower with her and the dad.
yeah,
And then he
it's
looks
like an
down
outdoor
and he
shower.
sees that rat.
Yeah. It's just sitting there. It's chilling.
It looks like it's an animatronic rat that's malfunctioning.
You
It's
think-
just sitting there. It like moves one leg.
You're saying you think it's a plant. It was a
don't
fake
know.
rat that was put there to get Ed's reaction. Big Ed, Necklace Ed.
What is that? And she's like, I think mouse.
I do know this scene, and I do laugh at it when I see
God,
it.
that mouse, that rat or whatever, it cracks me up.
It was just soaked in the water. It was just chilling. It is interesting that I guess in other parts of the world, having rats in your immediate space is something that you deal with more so.
That can't be good because
It's not good.
it's going to get into your food and then your food's going to spoil or it's going to shit in your food.
Yeah, I'm sure no one likes it, and there are probably measures to try to control it, but there's less control. It's interesting, especially learning that rats can, go through holes the size of an inch or less, a little bit less, that they're not inside more. Because in my mind, it was always rats don't come inside because they're too big. Mice come inside because they're small. But there's certainly entry points that I found for mice that are larger than an inch in diameter. So, thank God there's not rats, but it is very rare. Rats, I was reading, also tend to nest outside or underground and don't necessarily like being inside, which, all right, idiots. I feel like being inside is the way to go. But
Well, they'll be in the walls.
yeah, they don't come inside as much though. Like, it's still kind of inside.
It's probably dangerous to come inside.
Mice take over the walls. And
But mice are smaller than rats. So it would make sense that they'd be able to sort of hide a bit more than a rat. So maybe it's just too dangerous for
I don't know
them
if it's
to
too
be inside.
dangerous. It just seems like it's built in and that natural thing. Because I agree with what you're saying. That's what I was thinking. But it seems to be that they could get inside if they wanted. They just don't
So
seem
I'm
to.
saying they could get inside, but it's too dangerous for them. They're around the things that kill them.
What, people?
Yeah.
Well, mice aren't
Or
that
animals
smart.
or something like a dog or a cat. So stay outside.
Man, when I killed mice last year, they're so small. They really are. And I think, come on, why are you here? If you didn't poop and pee everywhere, I would have let you live.
I know.
But you can't help yourself and you just constantly defecate. You're just letting it flow at all times. And so get out. You got to die now.
Yeah. I've never had to deal too much with a mouse problem, but I have had a mouse or two, I think, in my past. But I got those humane traps.
And you set it free. We're
Yeah, I
probably,
set it free.
I bet a mouse's zone of existence is pretty small too. So you set it free and then it doesn't know what to do and it gets killed. But at least you didn't kill it, right? You gave
Well,
it a
I set it
chance.
free within its own bound, like right by my house.
They probably came right back in.
Well, I'll set it free again.
I'm with you. I don't necessarily want to kill them. And luckily I haven't had
those little mice.
much of a mouse problem. It was just last
I would
year.
want to kill a rat. A rat would be way too big to kill.
Oh, it is. It's disgusting. And I didn't kill it. But the one that was in my car and the skid plate, I almost vomited.
Did you?
There was
I don't know how you rode around in that car with the smell.
It surprisingly wasn't so bad until it was. And then at that point, if you switch the air to the one that circulates
right.
the air, it doesn't smell. If it's coming from the outside, then it stunk. And who knows what I was breathing in at that point.
I know.
Probably still sick from it. The
Sorry.
long sickness. Anyway, all right.
Do you hear this noise? Listen. Do you hear that?
No.
Okay, good.
What is it?
It's the connection for my mic, and when it gets touched barely, it goes like.
I'm not hearing that.
All right, good.
But somebody somewhere out back turned on this giant fan that they turn on during the day now. I don't know what the fuck it is, and it runs all day, and it's loud. I put on a noise gate on my mic, so you probably can't hear it. But
Oh, I haven't heard it.
yeah, good. I hear it constantly. It goes off at night. I don't know what the fuck it is. I don't know why
It makes me think it's
exists.
one of those air conditioners, but
But it's so loud. It's not. It's like it's steady, but it's really loud. It sounds like some kind of industrial pump. I thought maybe
yeah, is it on the back of a building?
you can't pinpoint where
Like a
it's coming
chicken
from.
farm fan?
Yeah,
you know?
I can't pinpoint where it's coming from, but it's really annoying. It's a new development.
Oh,
Greatest-
I'm so sorry.
Greatest city in the world.
Yep.
$3,400
Probably a
in
rat did
rent for rat infestation and giant fans. People yelling at you for no reason.
I don't know. This is scary. It's an intense city.
It's fine. It's better than other cities.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Please like and review. Send it to a friend. Tell them you like our show. Convince them to listen. And also, if you would like a discount on some really great hot sauce locally made in Chattanooga, go to hoffandpepper.com. Use our code OneTopic15. You can get some 15% off of some hot sauce and give it to a friend. Keep it for yourself. There's lots of options, different flavors. Check them out. And that's it. Talk to you later. Bye.